Ryomen Sukuna just came off the biggest jumping in fictional history. How did he do it? How did Sukuna survive the Battle of Shinjuku? I'm gonna go over all the instances where Sukuna almost died or should have lost, from Gojo all the way to the final Black Flash. This isn't going to be a recap of the entire battle because that would take an hour, but I will be explaining most of the vital concepts / techniques. Before we get into it though, a little history on what this fight actually is. If you want to skip to the start, time's right here. Ryomen Sukuna is the king of curses, the strongest being to have ever lived. We already know this. After the Culling Game arc, he took over Yuji's body and swapped it out for Megumi's. This means Sukuna has access to the 10 shadows, along with his own broken powers. He then crushed Megumi's soul by killing his sister with his own technique and submerging it using the bath ritual. Sukuna also ate 4 more out of his 5 remaining fingers, bringing his overall power to 95%. While all that was happening, Gojo was freed from the prison realm. Then both fighters agreed to a death match on Christmas. However, if Sukuna won, then he would rain terror on the world, which our heroes don't want. So he was already expecting them to jump him in the event of this. Also, in the month prior to the battle, the anti-Sukuna squad trained in a bunch of different ways that I don't want to explain. Just know that our protagonists were noticeably greater than they were before. With that out of the way, let's see how Sukuna capped his way through this 46 chapter fight. Look, I know I said we were going to get to it, but let me just cover a few things. Reverse curse technique, multiplying negatives of cursed energy to create positive energy used for healing. A very difficult power that most sorcerers can never achieve. Gojo and Sukuna though, masters at RCT. They can regenerate entire limbs easily. This is a key element to why Sukuna survived for so long. Basically, as long as this power is on, he can't die. However, none of that would be possible without his massive amount of cursed energy. In short, remember how Yuta is said to have boundless energy? Yeah, Ryomen has over double. Got all that? Good, let's go. To begin the battle, Gojo fires 200% Hollow Purple, the most powerful attack in the entire series, bar none. Sukuna survived it due to reinforcing his hands with cursed energy at a 2.4 mile distance, and it still took chunks off of his body. Just like Gojo, Sukuna knows how to blow up his brain and heal it using RCT. Let me explain. Normally after a domain is opened, the user's curse technique, CT, is unusable. But due to curse techniques being located around the prefrontal cortex of the brain, you can blow that spot up with cursed energy and heal it with RCT, therefore reinstating the technique. An extremely risky maneuver because they're doing on-the-fly brain surgery, but they do it 4 times without drawbacks. Gojo describes Sukuna not being able to use his CT as a big advantage for him, so this was pretty vital for Sukuna's life. His frustration at the end of the chapter is trying to figure out why Sukuna isn't using 10 shadows during the domain clash, which would help him tremendously. Then we see the first sign of the Maharaga wheel spinning. This means that Sukuna has started Maharaga's analysis and adaptation. Due to Gojo activating Unlimited Void 0.01 seconds faster than Malevolent Shrine, Sukuna's brain was overloaded. Gojo was about to crush his vital organs, but at this point, Ryomen said, "Fuck it, Maharaga!" He was holding the creature back the entire time, using his own body for the adaptation process, so Gojo wouldn't kill it in one attack. But here, Sukuna had no choice. Gojo then realizes Maharaga has already adapted to Void, though Maho's adaptation shouldn't have been that fast if Sukuna was only hit for 0.01 seconds. However, it is revealed Megumi's soul was used for the adaptation process for all 5 domain clashes. Sukuna also kinda tanked Unlimited Void to perform this, which he did when he deactivated domain amplification during the clashes. The time he did this was for less than 10 seconds. However, we see in chapter 230 that it definitely took a toll. Similar to Gojo, Sukuna took so much damage to his brain from Void that he couldn't activate a domain. This remains the case even after Gojo dies, by the way. So now his goal for the next chapter or so was to get Maharaga to adapt to Infinity. He also seems to be low on RCT output from this point on until way later. At the beginning of 235, the narrator says Sukuna is uneasy for the first time. This is due to Gojo hitting 2 Black Flashes, which made his RCT output ramp up, he killed Agito, Sukuna can't use Domain and 10 Shadows at the same time, they probably can't use Domain at all anymore, and even so, it would be pointless. Mahoraga hasn't fully adapted to Red, nor does he have the adaptation Sukuna is looking for. Keep that in mind. Then Gojo is setting up for Hollow Purple again, which will be a one-shot. After hitting another Black Flash, Gojo shoots Red towards Blue. In order to prevent Purple, Sukuna sends Mahoraga after both. The Shikigami was to first intercept Blue since it had already adapted to it, then Red to further the adaptation. However, Gojo used the attraction of Blue to make himself move at top speed towards Mahoraga. After Blue was defended, Sukuna moved in for Red and targeted it with Piercing Blood, but Gojo chanted in order to increase Blue's effectiveness, its attractive force, causing it to swallow the attack. Afterwards, there was nothing Sukuna could do, and Hollow Purple occurred. Purple raptured Sukuna's body and left him the closest to death he had been. Although, after meeting with Gojo in the rubble, Sukuna fired the adaptation Mahoraga gave him. A slash that he could copy. A slash that cuts the world. Mahoraga's first adaptation to Infinity was a technique Ryomen could not replicate, but since it continued improving, he eventually gave Sukuna this model. The ability that led to the death of Satoru Gojo. Like an impatient child, Kashimo immediately enters the scene. While Sukuna was given a cursed tool by Urame from above, it had no effect on Kashimo as he's resistant to lightning. Kashi immediately activated his CT and was well on his way to defeating a weakened Sukuna, but in the end, it is revealed Ryomen was saving a trump card. Full reincarnation. His physical body is now fully healed along with extra arms, eyes, and a mouth to assist in using techniques. Though now he can no longer use 10 Shadows, and even if he could, he already lost the best Shikigami. We also get the dumbest panel in JJK 238, and we never got that flashback, so this means literally nothing. Then, after a little struggle, Sukuna waffles Kashimo. At this point, Jujutsu High's anti-Sukuna squad is in full effect. Pretty much every good guy in the verse comes to help. Higuruma gets the Executioner's Blade after retrialing Yuji and Sukuna. A reminder that if the opponent is proven guilty, this sword will instantly kill them. Choso, Ino, and Kusakabe come along to jump as well. However, Higuruma's confiscation ability did not work on Sukuna's CT. Instead, it took away the curse tool. This scene where Ryomen gets jumped is really one of the cleanest fights. My favorite battles in anime and manga are when shit gets desperate and any side can win in a single move. Towards the end, Sukuna 1v1s Higuruma and forces him to awaken RCT. He even trolls him into stabbing a hand that was already severed. Then, when it finally came down to it, Higuruma died to give Yuji the Executioner's Blade. Itadori gets blitzed and the technique wears off. It's at this point Sukuna realizes not only Yuji can use reverse curse technique because he basically offed him earlier, but also why he hates the brat so much. Out of all those he has killed, Ryomen actually has a deep connection to Yuji and knows that his will is unbreakable, which then leads Sukuna to declare that he will crush his opponent with all he has. Until Yuta enters the scene and activates his domain. Since Sukuna still can't produce his, he defends with Hollow Wicker Basket, an anti-domain technique that neutralizes the opponent's barrier. Though even with this defense, it doesn't stop Yuta from activating other curse techniques that he has copied, as long as they aren't the domain's sure hit technique, which Akotsu chose as Jacob's Ladder, the ability that is specifically designed to kill Sukuna. Keep in mind, Yuji and Rika are there as well. Now the King of Curses is in a pinch. He's fighting 3 different characters. In fact, Itadori can now separate his soul from Megumi's body and decrease his power with every hit. If this continues on, he would eventually have to drop Hollow Wicker Basket and be instantly destroyed by the technique created to kill him. On top of all that, he's fighting Yuta, who has about the same amount of cursed energy as him, as well as having copied his curse technique by seemingly eating Sukuna's finger. Keep that detail in mind. So what does Sukuna decide to do in this dire situation? I mean, shit, why not just play right into their hands? As soon as he releases Hollow Wicker, these niggas grab his arms, Yuta hits him in the stomach, Yuji starts using blood manipulation, and even though he can still use Dismantle with one arm left, Sukuna is so weak at this point that it barely affects anybody. This is where the King of Curses is finished, as he is then hit with maximum output, Jacob's Ladder. doesn't work on him, then again Sukuna uses the world-cutting dismantle to slice everyone around him and seemingly breaks Yuta's domain. However, everything was going according to plan. It was a conventional move for a sorcerer that Sukuna should have been able to avoid, a surprise attack against an opponent of certain victory. In chapter 252, it is revealed that as soon as Yuta got clipped, he dropped the domain on purpose. Waiting outside was Maki Zenin. In her hands was the split soul katana, a weapon that cuts the soul, therefore weakening reverse curse technique, as Sukuna isn't used to having his soul affected by this. Meanwhile, Yuji runs towards the fight after he realizes that Megumi is depressed when getting in touch with his soul, but then he falls over and leaves the battle to the actual important people. Maki fights a life or death battle with Sukuna, physically overpowering him multiple times and even dodging the world-cutting slash while blindsided. The king even acknowledges that she reads his techniques better than the others. Maki then realizes that Sukuna is not only using RCT, but also keeping his heart beating with cursed energy, just like he did at the start of the series. Urame also says that Ryomen still isn't taking this fight seriously, which okay, sure, keep blazing. This absolutely doggish fight continues in 253, with Maki withstanding multiple slashes. Ino tries to step in, gets watched immediately, Kusakabe tries to sneak the king, but even that doesn't work, then the real fight continues. Sukuna then realizes how much of a dog Maki is for casting aside everything that has to do with sorcery. Out of all opponents he's fought, Maki is the only one who makes him feel the need to prove something. To prove that strengthening sorcery is a better choice than physical might. To prove that he made the right decision. Keep in mind, this is a character who does not care about anything or anyone besides his own desire, and due to this overwhelming feeling, Sukuna hits a black flash. With all of Jujutsu High's heavy hitters off the table, the only person left standing is Kusakabe.
12 seconds later.
So following, it is revealed that Miguel and Laure were enlisted by Yuta to help defeat Sukuna. They do some boxing, but it's mostly just to buy time for Yuji and Choso to reappear. Honestly, it's at this point where the Shinjuku fight kind of falls off for me, because Yuji just keeps coming back after everything and constantly awakening new powers, while Sukuna adapts to the situation every time. The fight was also going on way too long. I caught up with the manga around the time of Takaba versus Kenjaku, so I can't even imagine how the people who were reading since the Gojo portion would feel. Personal biases aside though, it is revealed Maki survived and cuts one of Sukuna's hands off, which he needs for the world-cutting dismantle. With that out of the way and poor reverse curse technique, if Yuji can just land one more good, Sukuna hits another black flash, and everyone is terrified because his RCT might come back. Now Ryomen is getting full-on jumped, with Maki being the main fighter. The king hits her with another black flash, plus an additional one on Choso. It's kinda getting corny at this point. However, the fighters I mentioned earlier, Laure and Miguel, use a technique to immobilize Sukuna, allowing Yuji to land the first of many black flashes. The narrator says Yuji has awakened, then we get more context on this. See, today we know Kenjaku is Itadori's mom, but his dad is the reincarnated soul of Sukuna's dead twin. Aye, bruh, that doesn't come completely out of nowhere, it kinda was foreshadowed, but whatever. Essentially, Yuji has just as much potential as the King of Curses. After that reveal, he proceeds to hit 8 black flashes in a row and starts using Sukuna's curse technique. These hits not only did massive damage, but remember, Yuji has soul-splitting attacks, so as the boundary between Sukuna and Megumi's soul widened, he lost RCT usage. So Sukuna, tired of this main character shit, reopens his domain. Due to part of his brain being unaffected by Unlimited Void, changing the hand signs required, and a random binding vow, Sukuna unleashes Malevolent Shrine, destroying everything in the vicinity. Everything except for Yuji, of course, because now he knows Simple Domain. Usually a technique like this should just get shredded up by Shrine, but just as that happens to Itadori, Ryomen activates Divine Flame Open, a technique that requires Sukuna to land Dismantle and Cleave beforehand. The ability is powerful, but the flames are slow and have little range. To combat this, he uses more binding vows. Sukuna can't use Divine Flame when outnumbered except for in a domain. All substances hit by Malevolent Shrine gain explosive curse energy. Furthermore, Sukuna altered the barrier specification, blah 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 blah, big explosion that kills everything. The long explanations are cool, but at some point they just get boring, especially to explain shit that we have already seen. And the funny part is, this doesn't even kill Yuji, it kills Choso. It's here that Sukuna faces Yuji in the rubble, along with his second brother, Todo. Due to opening shrine, Sukuna is out of a curse technique, meaning it's just straight boxing from here on. Todo had regained his CT Boogie Woogie with the use of a Vibra Slap, an instrument allowing him to switch places 50 times a second. As with everyone else in the series, this CT confuses Sukuna. Even after watching both fights with Hanami and Mahito, he admits this power is now impossible to predict. So he just opens his domain again, even though that makes no sense. He has just as much energy as Yuta, who can't use domain more than once a day, but it's explained that Sukuna is just such a master of curse energy that he is able to do this. Speaking of Yuta, after stealing Kenjaku's curse technique, Yuta takes control of Gojo's corpse. Both opponents get into an admittedly epic domain clash. Due to Akotsu training with Gojo, he learned how to perform his barrier shrinkage. Since Sukuna had already seen this, in turn he shrank Malevolent Shrine, which allowed him to maintain it longer than he did against Yuji. In 3 minutes, Yuta must inflict enough damage to Ryomen to where he drops his domain. On the other hand, the King of Curses must destroy Infinite Void and expand his range to kill everyone. While Akotsu has the advantage due to Sukuna not being able to use the world-cutting slash, he realizes just how much work Gojo put into his ability. Yuta biffs the Limitless technique multiple times. He even tries to use purple.
9 ropes, polarized light.
However, both opponents are aware of Akotsu not being able to use any other of his curse techniques. What Sukuna doesn't expect is for Yuta to throw a pager at him with Inumaki on the other side. Once again, Inu sacrifices his vocal cords, freezing Sukuna in order for Yuta to land hollow purple, which doesn't do anything. Sure, Yuta isn't proficient at using it, nor did he charge it up like last time, but this is a technique that defies space itself, so how anybody would survive it with such minimal injuries is beyond me. So after this clean ass panel, it is a 3v1 with straight hands once again. Or Yuta drops dead after burning out both Limitless and Kenjaku's curse technique due to opening Infinite Void. So yeah, enough of that. With the domain expelled, pieces of the barrier laced with cursed energy are everywhere, leading to Todo going crazy with Boogie Woogie. This gives Yuji the opportunity to use Dismantle directly on Sukuna and Megumi's souls. He isn't just moving them apart, but directly severing the link now. Due to this, Ryomen starts contemplating defeat. Then, just as Todo's Vibra Slap is broken, Angel appears and activates maximum output Jacob's Lap. Yeah, it doesn't work and Sukuna literally just jumps through the attack. What did you expect? I'm not going to spend any more time on this because if Angel never stepped in, then nothing changes. It's kind of the same for Yuta. Their inclusion here serves no narrative purpose except for just extending the fight for no reason. By the way, Sukuna hit 2 black flashes on Todo and has regained reverse curse technique, extending this fight even longer. Fuck. So this is the final dilemma. Everyone else is down for the count, with Yuji and Sukuna facing each other. Oh, and Hikari is still fighting Arame. Remember that shit? Yeah, neither does the author. With Yuji's soul-splitting Dismantle, he is a definite threat to the king. However, that's only if it can hit, which he is struggling with due to Sukuna's reformed body. Having run out of options, Yuji uses his last resort. Domain expansion. Don't even know the name of it. How? Well, remember all of what he has been doing during this fight, and he is the main character. Obviously, he was going to get this at some point, and it's the end of the series. We gotta wrap this shit up. Thankfully though, it isn't just another domain clash, as Yuji actually tries to talk with Sukuna. Itadori informs him about many of his life experiences and how he has come to realize humans aren't just born to serve a role and die. We aren't just tools. The king actually understands everything that Itadori is saying here, nor is he tuning it out. Though it's Ryomen Sukuna, he ultimately does not care. None of Itadori's words resonate with him at all, to which it's then revealed that this isn't just a talk no jutsu section. Free Fushiguro. I'll spare you if you return to me. As you can imagine, these words heat Sukuna up. And I actually like this section a lot. If this is what came after Kusakabe lost, I would enjoy this fight a lot more, but anyway, Sukuna immediately activates Hollow Wicker Basket. Even if the domain is like Malevolent Shrine, it doesn't matter as any anti-domain technique activated by Sukuna will always stand firm as long as he links his hands. So basically, we're just back to regular punching. However, through physical contact, Yuji is able to link back to Megumi's soul and convince him to keep on living. This causes Fushiguro to finally do something and use 10 shadows against his captor. At this point, Sukuna's reverse curse technique can't keep up with Yuji's hits, but his CT does come back, which he uses to destroy one of Itadori's gauntlets. In a final attempt to end this battle, the King of Curses uses domain expansion, but then he realizes an even more insane truth. 2 of Yuji's fingers are gone. Remember that last finger I mentioned way earlier? Well, yeah. Yuta didn't copy Shrine by consuming it. Instead, it was through Itadori, meaning Ryomen's opponents still possess one of his fingers. And of course, who better to capitalize on this opportunity than Nobara? Whatever. Due to this last second save, Sukuna drops Hollow Wicker Basket and is hit with Dismantle by the domain. With a few more punches, including Divergent Fist and of course Black Flash, Sukuna is split from Megumi's body. Finally! In chapter 268, the King of Curses is reduced to a blob on the floor, gasping for air. Though even while disintegrating, he continues to curse Yuji. Do not dare insult me, for I am a curse. And that is how Sukuna survived Shinjuku, because he technically isn't dead. All the way back in chapter 1, we learned that the fingers cannot be destroyed by pretty much anything. So even with the potential of Sukuna returning one day, they seal the finger back at Yuji's high school. Plus, even if he did come back, he would get fodderized by pretty much any character. Do I care about the last 3 chapters of the story? No, because they're ass. Bye.